Before we apply some eyeshadow, we're going to be taking some concealer and we're going to apply this all over our eyelid. Now this is going to cancel out any discoloration and also just give us a nice even tone surface to work on, as well as help any eyeshadow stick a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and blend this all over my eyelid, as well as take it up underneath the brow area. And you can use any eyeshadow primer of your preference. I just like to use concealers with a thicker consistency to them. Next, I'll be picking up this brush by Colourpopcosmetics. It's from one of their bundle sets, which I will link down below. And notice that it is a little bit dense because I'm going to just use this to really pack on the shade on the outer corner. I like to use denser brushes when I am packing on darker shades, just to really get them to stick on there. And so I'll be picking up this brown shade called No Bounds from the Wild Nothing palette by Colourpop. And we're just going to go directly on top of this concealer. I did not set it or anything. I like to go straight in with the eyeshadows so that they can really stick to that. So notice I'm just really tapping it on there with a very light hand and small circular motions. I'm going to start blending this slightly upward and slowly dragging it in the crease and making sure that I don't go too high up. I really want to keep it in this area. So continuing on, I am just taking a little bit of product at a time and just slightly layering this color. I like to build up my shades. I don't want to take too much product at once because some dark shades are hard to blend out. So I like to take a little bit at a time and then just slowly blend it out. Always use a light hand, guys. I know it might look like I am pulling and tugging, but I promise you I am just very ever so gently dabbing it on there. So as you can see here, I'm just going to take a little bit more product and just very gently place it on the outer corner again, and then I'm going to slowly blend this into the crease and actually make sure that it gets into my crease area. Sometimes I forget and I do not place enough, but as you can see here, that's what I'm doing. I'm slowly dragging it inwards, making sure that it sticks into that crease area. Next, I would be taking this brush by Glitter Realm Co. and it is a very soft bristled blending brush. You can use any brush that you like. I like to use soft bristled brushes when blending out because it gives you that nice smooth finish. Now, we're going to be taking this shade called Hot Springs from that same palette, and I'm just going to go directly on top of the first brown shade that we used and slowly blend upwards. Always use small circular motions because you have more control over it, and really just it's about taking your time and just really blending as needed. Next, I'll be taking some more of that No Bounds shade on the same brush that we used the first step, and I'm going to apply that in the same area. We're just going to basically repeat steps 1 because I feel like we lost some of the intensity when we were blending the second shade, which is going to happen. I like to go back and forth sometimes between steps and really just layer the colors. I know it might seem tedious to some of y'all, but this is how I do it. I'm pretty sure I am not the only one. So just experiment and find what works best for you. Next, we're going to be repeating step 2 with that shade Hot Springs on the same brush that we used. We're going to blend this out one last time, again with this shade and very small circular motions. As always, guys, let's just blend and blend and blend before we move on to the next step. So the next thing I'm going to do is take a clean blending brush. You can use this dry or you can add a light shade in the palette just to really finish up this gradient blend. I'm going to be taking the shade Top Down and I'm just going to ever so slightly go back on the edge of this and just make sure that I touch up anything and try to get this as soft as I can. And this brush that I am using, I believe it's by Glitter Realm Co. from one of their bundle sets. It is a very soft blending bristled blending brush. That's kind of a tongue twister. But as you can see here, I'm just going back and forth with very small, soft circular motions. Alright, finally we are going to be carving out our crease. Now I like to use rounded brushes. As you can see here, they are rounded at the edges. I believe as a beginner, a bigger brush would be a little bit more ideal because if you don't have a steady hand, a bigger brush is going to help you cover more space rather than a smaller brush. I like to use a small brush. This really helps me clean up that line. But I mean, like I said, sometimes it takes practice. I mean, some people get it right away. It's all about experimenting. This one is a nice one. It's a Zoeva brush. And this one is a small e.l.f. concealer brush. You can see I've used it so many times that it is already flattened out, which I love. I think I would be a little bit upset if I lost this brush, which you can find anywhere for like 99 cents. But this is the one I'm going to use. This one is just another example of a flat brush that you may use. Just experiment and find what works best for you. Now, whichever brush you decide to use, we're going to apply some concealer. I like to use a concealer with a thicker consistency to it, but as always, you can use whatever you like. I'm taking the same Pretty Fresh concealer by Colourpop, and I'm going to apply some on my brush. And then what I like to do is cover the majority of my lid. As you can see here, I'm just going to dab that right on there. And we're not going to go all the way down. We're doing a half cut crease, so I'm going to cover about 2/3 of my lid area. Now, once the concealer is on there, I like to slightly look up, and this is going to give me a guideline of what to fill in. Now, the further back you look, the higher this line is going to be. I don't want to take it too high since this look is going to be a little bit more subtle versus a dramatic look. There are times when I want this line to be higher, but for today, I want to show you guys that this will give you a guideline if you just slightly look up and then just fill in those gaps. So it's basically just like connecting the dots. You're just going to fill that in and clean up the line as much as possible. I like to get really close to the mirror when doing this, so I'm going to try my best to do it and film it at the same time so you guys can see what I mean. So I'm just going to fast forward this part a little bit so you guys can see the process. So feel free to take a little bit more concealer if you need to, and then just drag it down. Now when we get to this point right here, what I do with this edge is I like to take my finger and usually just drag a little bit slightly inward to wipe off a little bit of that excess concealer so that we can just have a smooth edge there so that when we blend our eyeshadows, there's not a harsh line at the edge. And then taking my brush, I'm just going to pull any excess concealer and push it downwards so that we have a nice flat base for our next eyeshadow. Just make sure it's nice and smooth as possible. Now again, before I forget, I must mention that when you're doing this step, try not to look upwards before you have set your concealer. Otherwise, it's going to transfer and all your hard patience on that line is going to mess up. So just be very careful when doing this. Next, on another flat brush, I'm going to be taking the shade called Crystal Love, and I'm going to apply that all over the area we applied concealer so that we can set it, meaning we're going to set it in place so that it does not transfer anywhere else. And as you can see here, I am just dabbing it on there ever so gently. And if you'd like, you can dab some on with your finger. This is going to help bring out that pigment just a little bit more. Now that we've done that, we are going to blend this edge together. I'm just going to take a little bit of the first shade that we used and just slightly tap it and drag to blend. And that's pretty much it. Next, I just want to apply a little bit of the shade called Coastline, just because I think it has a little bit of a shimmer hue to it. So I'm just going to apply that all over the same area we applied concealer, just to bring it out a little bit more. Next, for the lower lash line, I'm just going to take a little bit of that shade called No Bounds that we used before, and I'm just going to apply it about halfway down and just blend it on the edge right there. If need be, you can go back and just soften it up if you'd like. For the inner corner, I'm just going to apply a little bit of Spirited so that we can give it a little bit of shine. Then I'm going to highlight the brow bone like usual. Now sometimes the concealer, it does transfer over, and or you might just want to define this line a little bit. You can take a small eyeliner brush such as this one, which I like to use, and then if I want to just deepen it up a bit, I'll put a little bit of that dark shade and just go slightly above it, just like you're tracing it, and that's going to help define that line even more, so slightly. This is just an example of how I would do it. For mascara today, I'll be using the Bold Mood Mascara by Carity. And to finish things up, I'll be applying some false lashes by Luna Magic. So this completes the tutorial. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys want to see next in the comments. As always, have a blessed week, and we'll see you next time.